The trends in fishing are changing faster right now than they ever have. We're learning so much about fish now. That's the really interesting part, learning where they are, how they suspend, and how they react to lures. The ability to present a lure right in front of the fish's face.
Welcome to AnglingBuzz. You know, over the years, we've seen many trends in the world of fishing. Some are short-lived, and some have changed the world of fishing forever. One example that comes to mind is the jigging Rap for walleye in open water. The jigging Rap is a 60-year-old ice fishing bait. Over the past 10 years or so, it became one of the hottest artificial tactics in walleye fishing.
It definitely pays to have jigging Raps in the boat. Recently,
the hair jig has come back into style among walleye and bass fishermen. Hair jigs used to be a big deal, and they sort of went out of fashion for a while because of the soft plastics craze. Pan fishing has long been dominated with small jigs tipped with soft plastics or live bait. And more recently, micro finesse crankbaits have become very popular among hardcore panfish anglers.
It is huge, and look at, do you think he liked that little X-Rap?
It wasn't that long ago that most tournament bass fishing events were dominated by power fishing tactics with a baitcaster. Today, finesse rigging dominate the presentations in bass tournaments across the country. In fact, the first 3 to 4 professional bass derbies this year were won with forward-facing sonar with a finesse jig head and soft plastic minnow presented on a spinning rod, swimming minnows. Today we're joined by Dan Quinn, director of the Rapala Pro Staff, and Dan has seen many trends in the world of fishing come and go. He's been involved in the fishing industry for many, many years. Dan, what's your thoughts when we're looking at kind of the overall scope when it comes to forward-facing sonar?
Hey Troy, thanks for having me on. Yeah, forward-facing sonar has had an incredible impact on fishing, and the trends in fishing are probably changing faster right now than they ever have.
Pretty straightforward. See a fish, catch a fish.
The ability to present a lure right in front of the fish's face. You know, you're no longer having to comb water and search for fish blindly because of the electronics are shooting out and you can see them.
There's one right there. I'll make a chunk out there and we'll see if we can get him.
It's definitely something we pay attention to at Rapala.
Oh, got him.
Very closely.
Yeah. Look at that. See, that's my fish I'm fighting in.
Within 1 year, I mean, the way people were bass fishing and winning bass tournaments has completely changed. And the jig and the minnow, the jig and the freeloader are arguably winning more tournaments than anything else.
You can actually read what the attitude of the fish are. You can see them out and away from the boat.
As far as walleye fishing goes, that's changed as well. You're able to present the lure in front of the fish, right in his face, so jigging Rap and walleyes like the fast fall and kind of reaction strikes. So heavier weights on jigs and getting fish to react.
A lunched jig Rap.
We're learning so much about fish now. That's the really interesting part, learning where they are, how they suspend, and how they react to lures.
Would you not catch them, you know, if you didn't have it? No, we'd still catch these fish, you know what I mean? But you would fish differently. It'd take longer to find them.
It's an interesting time, and it'll be fun to see how this all shakes out.
Okay. And I know that Rapala makes the Crush City Freeloader, also the VMC Hybrid Swim Bait Jig, also the Moon Eye Jig. All these baits have won big tournaments over the last couple of years. Now, how does this affect sales when looking at maybe classic traditional baits like crankbaits, rattle baits, topwater baits?
Yeah, there's no doubt that the evolution of technology and forward-facing sonar is impacting lures, hard baits.
I got a feeling this is going to be a good day, James.
And forward-facing sonar is definitely a factor, but they all still have their time and place.
They like them big baits. They like that noise.
All these lures that have caught fish, they still do.
Real crawdad cruncher. Look at that guy there. Wow.
They all still work, but there's definitely been an increase and an emphasis on soft plastics, specifically the minnow-shaped baits like the freeloader and the new one we've got launching at ICAST that's won well over $500,000 already and hasn't even launched. It's the mooch minnow, but it's the ultimate tool to present to a fish when you can see them, put it in front of their face, is a minnow-shaped bait on a jig head, matching the size of the minnow with the right weight of the jig.
Jigging it above them, and then all of a sudden let it go and let it fall to the bottom. A lot of times you'll see them turn around and crash on the bait.
Without question, it has changed how people fish. You just don't need to comb water like you used to if you're utilizing that technology. But at the end of the day, all the same lures still catch fish.
Maverick, my new favorite walleye bait.
But it's an interesting time. We'll just have to kind of take it as it comes and play it day at a time.
Thanks, Dan, for sharing your insight and your perspective into the different trends in fishing. Appreciate it. In this next segment, we're joined by Glenn Walker. He's going to be talking about Ned rigging, and this time of year, pretty much all open water season, Ned rigs are very effective.
I'm here to talk to you about the Elite Series Netster jig. It's a great, compact, precision Ned head. Comes in 4 sizes, 1/8, 3/16, quarter, and 5/16, and 4 colors, black, green pumpkin, brown, and chartreuse. My favorite way to fish the Netster is with a small plastic. This is about a 3-inch soft plastic stick bait, and I like to fish this for both largemouth and smallmouth on offshore vegetation, rocks, sand, really anything that's offshore that you can make a cast to. The Ned head is a great choice. What makes the Elite Series Netster head so unique is it has a very short, compact hook and head, so that way it's very aerodynamic, so when it's windy you can make a super long cast, and as that jig head and plastic is falling down through the water column, it'll fall very streamline like, and then if it does get hung up on that vegetation, quick pop of your rod and that jig breaks free of the vegetation. So I like to fish it on weed lines, rock piles, sand, really anything place that a largemouth or smallmouth will live. I like to throw the Netster. Size, that's all dependent on the depth of water. You can be fishing a Netster as shallow as a foot if you're skipping it under boat docks, or if you bump it up to like the 5/16 head, you could be fishing it, in 15, 20 feet of water. Color for me depends all on the water clarity and kind of what the fish's demeanor. If the water's really clear, I like a supernatural color profile like this green pumpkin head with a green pumpkin stick bait. If the water's a little dingier and I need to get the bass's attention more, I'll use that chartreuse head. So as you prepare to get out on those summer weed lines or summer rock piles and target bass this summer, pick up some of the Northland Tackle Elite Series Netster jigs. I think you're gonna be very pleased with them. They have a super sharp hook, a real nice head design on them, and they just flat out catch bass.
Ned rigs, they're not just for bass, they can be effective for walleye also. And up next, we're joined by Jeremy Smith. He's going to share some thoughts and advice on choosing fishing line.
We often get asked, what is the best type of line to use for a certain fishing situation? Is it mono, is it fluorocarbon, or is it braid? Now, I'm going to talk specifically about braid because there are different types of braid that perform differently based on the conditions or the presentations that you're fishing. So there are basically 3 lines that I use with Suffix. Let's start with a line that I've used for years, and this is Suffix Nano Braid. Now, this is a great line for ultra finesse presentations, and Nano Braid has been improved recently into a new line from Suffix. This is called Suffix Revolve. And what I use this style of line for is like panfish fishing, if I'm fishing largemouth or smallmouth with really light baits. You can throw 32nd ounce baits really far, 16th ounce baits, so it gives you incredible casting distance. And the difference I've noticed with the Revolve from the Nano Braid is, one, we get this awesome high-vis color, which I love for most of my spinning rod applications, because often you might be fishing a slackline presentation, so you can see that line jump and you've always got a really clear picture of where your bait is. But the Revolve also is just, it's like slightly denser, and so it seems to perform a little bit better in the wind. So super stoked about Revolve. Definitely check this out. And then moving on to what I would call the most general, all around great fishing line that I use for walleye, bass, spinning applications, have this stuff on it. This is Suffix 832. Now I'm fishing 832 in like the, say, 8 to about 40 pound class. Most of my spinning rods that would be used for, finesse largemouth fishing, smallmouth fishing, walleye fishing with braid are all gonna be either 8 or 10 pound Suffix 832. And then You know, when I step into the, you know, largemouth bass style of stuff, I'm fishing a lot of 30 in 40 in the green stuff. This is just a line that handles really well. It's all around versatile. It's denser and it's also really smooth. So overall, just a great, you know, this is, if you're just looking for a line that does it all, 832 is certainly that. And then when you step up into really big applications and maybe your primary goal is not smoothness or handling, but it is shock strength, hence, you know, musky fishing or, you know, maybe frog fishing, that's where I am using the Pro Mix braid. You can take 1 pound baits and backlash and this stuff does not fail. So that is what makes this a superior choice in line for fishing big baits or any fishing situations where you might have a lot of shock in the system. So maybe if you're frog fishing and you really like to jack them, Performance braid is a great line. You are not going to have failure when you really require that high shock strength. So those are the choices that I like to have in the boat. So I hope that helps you if you're looking at making some choices in, you know, not only what type of line to choose, but also the specifics of the braided line that you might want to choose for that application.
This week in our Blackfish Giveaway, we're featuring the Cast Fish Short. Now these shorts are awesome. They feature a 4-stretch technology. They have a ton of pockets, including 1 zipper pocket for keys or phone. They also wick away moisture and are gonna keep you cool and comfortable all day. Now you can win these shorts if you head to AnglingBuzz.com and click on our giveaways, or scan the QR code below.
And now it's time for our cool products. We're going to start off with the Suicide Shad from Big Bite Baits. These come in natural patterns as well as bright patterns like this, these neon patterns, fluorescent patterns with the different flake and glitter inside. And these are great for walleye and smallmouth bass. And for all around fishing, in a 1/4 ounce jig head, you can slow roll this, you can snap jig it. If you're fishing a little bit shallower, you can go up to like an 1/8 ounce jig head. These are some of the newer, brighter color patterns that are available in the Big Bite Baits Suicide Shad. And next from Northland Tackle, 2 options in their Smeltinator jig line. As you can see, this is the jig that helped Jeff Gussie Gustafson win the Bassmaster Classic. It features a bait keeper to keep your soft plastics locked on there really well. A nice Gamakatsu hook. The minnow head design and shape perfectly matches minnow style baits, especially in the 3 to 4 inch size. This is also available in an underspin version. Features a willow blade with extra flash and vibration if you're fishing, say, in windy conditions or stained water. These are 2 great options from Northland Tackle, the Smeltinator and Smeltinator Underspin. If you use braid on your spinning rods, you probably use a fluorocarbon leader, and Suffolk has a great lineup of fluorocarbon leaders. These are available from 4 pound up to 30, 40 pounds, and even more. For all-around fishing, I use 10 pound and 8 pound probably for most of my smallmouth bass and largemouth bass fishing. Fluorocarbon has a refraction index close to that of water, so underneath the surface, this is going to be much more difficult to see than obviously braid, but especially monofilament. Fluorocarbon is also very abrasion resistant. Suffolk's advanced fluorocarbon leaders. And next from Seafoam, their high mileage motor treatment. This is formulated for vehicles that have over 75,000 miles to them. It's safe and effective on all types of gasoline fuel. It cleans and lubricates the entire fuel system. You can add 1 ounce of high mileage to each gallon of fuel. It's easy to use. Just pour it in when you fill up your vehicle. Seafoam motor treatment, high mileage. And up next, it's our technique of the week.
Oh, come here, buddy. Come here. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, sir.
There you go. As we were talking about, as Jake landed that fish, You know, electronics today really can speed the fish finding process, and we have actually like a certain, like almost like a recipe that we go about when we're hunting, you know, deep water walleyes, shallow water walleyes, smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, whatever species you fish for. And it first starts off with mapping, driving around, you know, identifying specific underwater structures that are seasonally right. And then once we drive up to that spot, then we'll use side imagery and we'll drive around that underwater structure and drop coordinates on fish and what we identify as the best habitat where the fish are likely to be positioned. And from there, then we finally put the trolling motor down and go to work and start experimenting with different lures that would ultimately catch those fish. And as we see, right now we're using Mega Live to more or less sort of sharpshooting. We're driving along the edge of a big underwater point, and you can see there's a bunch of them right in front of the boat. Right there, exactly 30 feet in front of the boat, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 walleyes. This is a classic drop shot rig. What I actually have is a VMC tungsten weight. This is about 1/4 ounce. And then this goes 1.5 foot lead to a red line, a VMC red line hook. But the nice thing about this for this particular style of fishing is how that bait, once I drop it to the bottom, it really positions the bait like this far off the bottom, exactly where the fish are positioned. You know, the same thing where Jake has been fishing the float, but you have to do some adjustment with that to make sure the bait is at the right depth level, but both baits work, you know what I mean, or both systems work. And this can work, you know, you ask, well, what depth of water does this work in? Oh, anywhere from 4 to 40, you know what I mean? 40 foot of water, we're using the exact same system, you know, to catch these fish. They're dependent on where they're at. A lot of times we use this exact same system or even that slip float like he's been doing along the edge of weed beds. The whole thing is what the nice thing about this system is when you can see them, we can actually flip the bait out, watch the bait drop, and it's dropping very, very close to the fish. And then you're just more or less dead sticking the bait in place and you got that live bait sitting there working. It's a relatively simple system, but interesting to me is how in the last, you know, 6 or 8 years, when you put all these different things together with the side imagery, the high-end mapping, and then in conjunction with Mega Live or forward-facing sonar, you're not fishing where fish are not. You know, that's the difference. Like, we're moving along here at a relatively rapid pace, and you can see, look at that right there. Exactly 40 feet in front of the boat, there's a whole herd of them. Not some, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's probably 8 fish sitting right in front of the boat within 30 feet of it that way.
Using your marine electronics properly to locate walleye, well, that's very important all season long. And we can all help stop the spread of aquatic invasive species anytime you're leaving any body of water. Remember, clean, train, dry. And be sure to visit us online at AnglingBuzz.com. We have more in-depth videos, guide reports, blogs, and much more. And you can follow us across our social medias. It's simply AnglingBuzz on YouTube, of course, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.